Thanks so much, Peg, and thank you for having this series. I'm so honored to be a part of it. And thank you all for coming. I thought, well, everybody still has their covers over their heads. I didn't think there'd be anyone here tonight. And I truly do believe that storytelling and making art might be what saves us as a species. So it feels really good to me to be here tonight and sharing with you a bit from my story. My new novel is called The Thin Bright Line, and it's based on the true story of my aunt and namesake. Her name was Lucy Bell Bledsoe. I go by Lucy Jane Bledsoe. 50 years ago exactly, in 1966, she died in a fire. She was 43 years old. I was 9 years old. So I lost my aunt and namesake. I didn't know really much about her, and no one really talked about her in my family in all the years that followed that. I only knew very few things about her. I knew that she was unmarried at 43. My dad told me that she had wanted to go to law school, but that their father said that wasn't an appropriate career for a woman. So she went ahead and studied for and passed the bar exam anyway without the benefit of law school. And you know, this was in the 50s. I asked my mom what she knew about her. My mom said, well, she was very, very independent. And I said, well, give an example. And Mom said, well, even in the 50s and 60s, she didn't let men hold doors open for her. And I thought, oh, well, that's interesting. So when I was 18 and I came out, I went back to my mom and I said, you know, how come Lucy Bell was unmarried? And my mom said, well, if you're asking if she was like you, I kind of paused and I'm waiting for her grand denial. And my mom said, she probably was. I was like, wow, you know, that's a lot for my mom to admit. And then she added, but I'm sure she never acted on it. So more years and even decades go by, and I've become tormented by this idea that what if there was someone out there who was mourning my aunt, and when she died when she was 43, what if she had a partner that none of us ever knew about? But I didn't have any way of finding out, so I was just checking my time. I'm going to just read for about 3 or 4 minutes and talk for 3 or 4 minutes. So I was taking a walk with a friend one night about 8 years ago, and she said, well, Google her. I was telling her all these bits, and I thought, well, Google her. She died in 1966. She was just this farm girl from Arkansas.
Oh my God. I was going to ask if you were from Arkansas. No, because we know a bunch of Bledsoes in Arkansas.
There's a bunch of Bledsoes in Arkansas and Tennessee.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll talk later. So I was told she was kind of sickly, she was thin and pale, just as farm girl from Arkansas. Why would she be on the internet? You know, when she died in '66. But of course I went home that night after the walk with my friend and I Googled her. And I was astonished by what I found. So began 8 years of research into my aunt's life. My novel is about the last 10 years of her life. Just a few quick things about what I found out about her. I found out that she shot off that Arkansas farm in 1943, like so many other women of her generation who escaped under the cover of the war, went straight to Greenwich Village. I learned that a few years after that, she started working with a guy named Henri Bader, who's now considered the father of climate change research. He's the guy who took the first ever complete ice cores from both Greenland and Antarctica. I learned she became, and the whole point of their project was to beat the Russians, because this was the Cold War. They thought the Russians were going to be getting us over the Arctic, so they had to understand ice. But the science, I won't go into details, never mind. And I learned that she became fluent in Russian as part of her job. She had a highly classified, top security job, and in spite of that, in spite of the high security job and it being the McCarthy era, she did in fact have women lovers. Long into my research, about 6 years into it, I finally did find the woman who was her partner at the end of her life. Unfortunately, she was already dead by only a couple of years, so I just missed being able to know her. So anyway, that's why I call this an American love story with Cold War complications. I'm going to stop right there and just read 2 short bits. I picked one bit to read tonight because of the political climate we're in right now. This does go back to Arkansas a bit. Anybody remember this famous picture? Yeah. So I'm just going to read a little bit about Lucy Bell. Yeah, thinking about, I'll hold it up. I sure can. Elizabeth Eckford, I think is her name in that picture. So this is September 1957. The week Little Rock tried to integrate Central High School, oh, just one quick thing. When Lucy Bell, this is a fact, when she was a child and she was so sickly, her father the doctor said to build a pen in the backyard so she could lie naked under the sun, so that happened. I refer to that. The week Little Rock tried to integrate Central High School, Lucy Bell bought a television set for her apartment. Everything, it seemed, drew her back to Arkansas. The one girl hadn't gotten the message that she was supposed to meet the others, so they could climb those stairs and walk in the front door together. She endured the jeers and projectiles of fruit all by herself. When the mob prevented her from getting near the high school entrance, she turned around and walked to the bus stop where she sat and waited alone. She wore a white blouse and a full skirt she'd made herself. A pair of sunglasses, her only shield, didn't hide the expression on her face. The girl's mouth was a bruise, her chin a balustrade holding up the entire country, her thin, bare arms hugging books to her chest, utterly vulnerable. She walked away from the tormentors, away from the Arkansas National Guard's guns, with her head held high, a slim insistence in her stride. Lucy Bell knew how that Arkansas sun, its muddy light, felt on bare skin, how the eyes of those insensate boys and girls could scrape and tear. The summer she was 9 years old, a witless neighbor boy snuck into the yard and peeked into Lucy Bell's sunshine pen. She heard him approach, she even saw his eyeball in the crack between two boards, but she refused to gather her clothes to her body or call for help. Penned and naked, she lay on her back, her arms at her side, her legs slightly spread, and looked back at his greasy pupil. A couple of years older than her, he was a scrawny boy, high-voiced and always looking for small acts of revenge. He had found a situation in which he could dominate. Already, though, she'd learned to toss her imagination far beyond the pen. She flew with the crows way above the town, effortlessly riding sweet, lilting drafts, not even bothering to look down on the little square houses and parched fields and stupid boys. The second time he came, she lifted a finger and pointed directly at his eyeball in the crack between the boards. He gasped as if she had put a hex on him, and she heard the thump of his bare feet running across the weedy grass. Lucy Bell's heart hurt with admiration for the young people attempting to attend Little Rock Central High. Eventually, the president ordered the Arkansas National Guard to protect rather than target the children. How strange to see the same men who had threatened the students with their aimed guns now escorting them. Helicopters circled the sky over the school and tanks rolled down the surrounding streets. A few white kids stood inside the high school entrance and extended their hands, welcomed the new students. How slight a gesture, though, a handshake, next to the wet food hurtling towards their faces, along with the spit, the shoves, the ugly words. Worst of all, the ugly words. This was America. This was Arkansas. I think of this book as a hopeful book. This is one woman. I had to read that part today. I cried when I was practicing reading This Was America. This is a woman who rose above the restraints of her time, was out in the 50s and 60s despite her jobs. I just want to read one last minute and a half bit. She has, in fact, in this section, been blackmailed by the lab she works with, and because she's queer, to move to Hanover with her job because she has too much information about what they're doing. So this is right after the meal in which she got blackmailed by her boss. Her heart has just been broken, so she decides to go with the change. Lucy Bell skipped drinks with the girls and went straight home after her little tete-a-tete with Henri Bader. She sat down at her typewriter and began writing. She wrote against the goons to keep their tentacles from reaching inside her to ward off the killer paranoia. They thought they knew her story. She wrote against Whisper Their Love and Odd Girl Out, too. Those books didn't describe her world. She wanted to write a story that did. The stupid informant didn't seem to even know that she hadn't seen Stella in well over a year. I just want to make sure it wasn't me. Huh? It's not me?
It's me, I'm sorry.
That's quite all right. We're all just relieved it's not us. Ironically, his outdated intelligence brought back the heartache. Lucy Bell missed Stella. She missed having a companion who wasn't afraid, who explored her own mind and aesthetic, who understood the complexity of lust. By 4:30 in the morning, Lucy Bell had written what might be the first chapter of her novel. Lefort sat on his short haunches next to her feet crying. She hadn't taken him out all night. She stood up stiff and exhausted but deeply satisfied. She and her dog walked in the dark to the lake. A cool breeze blew off the water. She stood on the shore watching the dim morning light begin to polish the surface of the lake and smiled thinking of Bader's hard sell. A life of the mind was what she'd do. That meant writing her novel. It meant seeing the ice course through all the way down to bedrock. Those translucent columns would be like lenses, ones that look deep into our history, and just as Bader had said, help humanity see its future. A thin, bright line formed on the water's horizon, a crack to something brilliant and lovely. It looked as though, if only she had a boat, she could sail right through it and arrive in that place of new light. So.